I never expected a typical family dinner to turn into such a dramatic spectacle, but that's exactly what happened on that fateful night. My sister, Scarlett Rose, had always been the golden child of our family. At 22, she had just graduated from an Ivy League business school, thanks to our father's generous financial support. But lately, things had taken an unexpected turn. As we gathered around the dining table, the tension was palpable. Our father, Jonathan, a successful businessman himself, couldn't hide his disappointment in Scarlett's lack of career progress. It had been over a year since her graduation, and she still hadn't secured a proper job. Little did we know that Scarlett had a secret up her sleeve, one that would shock us all and turn our family dynamic upside down. The evening started innocently enough. Mom had prepared her famous roast, and we were all enjoying the meal while engaging in small talk. But as the wine flowed freely, so did the conversations, and soon enough, the topic shifted to Scarlett's employment status. "So, Scarlett," Dad began, his voice tinged with frustration, "any progress on the job front? It's been over a year now, and I'm starting to worry about your future." Scarlett rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed by the familiar line of questioning. She took a large gulp of wine before responding, "Dad, you don't need to worry about me. I'm doing just fine." "Fine?" Dad scoffed. "How can you be doing fine without a job? I didn't pay for your Ivy League education just for you to sit around doing nothing." That's when things took an unexpected turn. Scarlett, emboldened by the alcohol and fed up with the constant nagging, decided to reveal her secret. "Actually, Dad," she said with a smirk, "I'm hustling hard and making money. You just don't know about it." The room fell silent as we all stared at Scarlett, waiting for her to elaborate. Mom looked concerned, while Dad's expression was a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Mom asked gently, trying to diffuse the tension. Scarlett took another swig of wine before dropping the bombshell. "I'm on OnlyFans, and I'm making bank." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before, while Mom's jaw practically hit the floor. As for me, I was caught between shock and a morbid curiosity about how this revelation would play out. "OnlyFans?" Dad finally managed to sputter. Isn't that a website for adult content?" "Yes," Scarlett finished for him, her voice dripping with defiance. "And before you start judging, I'm making $1,500 a month for barely lifting a finger. That's more than some of my classmates are making at their entry-level corporate jobs." I couldn't help but cringe at Scarlett's boast. While $1,500 a month might seem like a lot to her, I knew it was far less than what she could be earning with her degree. Plus, knowing her extravagant spending habits, I doubted she had saved any of it. Dad's initial shock quickly gave way to anger and disappointment. "Scarlett Rose," he said, his voice low and trembling, I am embarrassed and ashamed." Scarlett's defiant expression faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "Because I'm revealing myself to creeps online?" she shot back, using air quotes. "No," Dad replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "I'm ashamed because I feel like I've failed as a parent. I raised you to be ambitious, hardworking, and respectable. And now you're telling me you're content with selling your dignity for a pittance?" The words hung in the air, each one landing like a blow. Scarlett's face crumpled, the reality of her father's disappointment finally sinking in. "But Dad," she protested weakly, "I'm using my business degree. I'm marketing myself, building a brand." "Stop," Dad interrupted, holding up his hand. "Just stop. This isn't what I envisioned for you, Scarlett. You're an intelligent young woman. You graduated from one of the best schools in the country. You have so much potential, and you're wasting it on this." As I watched the scene unfold, I couldn't help but think about how Scarlett had changed since starting university. The sister I knew growing up was ambitious, driven, and always striving for excellence. But somewhere along the way, she had lost her way. I remembered the friends she had introduced me to during my visits to her campus. There was Amber Sky, a trust fund baby with a penchant for designer labels and a sense of entitlement that knew no bounds. And then there was Jasmine Wilde, whose idea of success was marrying rich rather than building a career of her own. One particular memory stood out, a time when I was visiting Scarlett at her off-campus apartment. Jasmine had just returned from a date, fuming about how her suitor had refused to buy her a bottle of crystal champagne. "Can you believe that cheap bastard?" Jasmine had ranted, tossing her designer purse onto the couch. I hinted all night about wanting some bubbly, and he had the audacity to suggest we split a bottle of Prosecco instead. On a first date? As if I'm some common floozy. Scarlett had nodded sympathetically, seemingly agreeing with Jasmine's outrageous expectations. It was in that moment that I realized just how much my sister had changed, how far she had strayed from the values our parents had instilled in us. Back at the dinner table, the tension continued to mount. Mom, always the peacemaker, tried to salvage the situation. "Scarlett, honey," she began cautiously, "we're not judging you. We're just concerned. This OnlyFans thing, it's not a long-term career plan, is it?" Scarlett shrugged, the defiance creeping back into her voice. "Why not? Some girls are making millions on there. And it's not like I'm doing anything super explicit. It's just a few lingerie pics, maybe some tasteful nudes." Dad's face went from red to purple. "Tasteful nudes?" he exploded. "There's no such thing as a tasteful nude when you're selling it to strangers on the internet." "Oh, so now you're slut-shaming me?" Scarlett fired back, her eyes blazing. "Real progressive, Dad." I could see this conversation was quickly spiraling out of control. Part of me wanted to intervene, to try and mediate between my sister and our parents. But another part of me was paralyzed, unable to do anything but watch as years of family dynamics and expectations imploded before my eyes. "This isn't about shaming you, Scarlett," Mom interjected, her voice strained. "We're worried about your future. What happens when you want to start a real career? These pictures, they'll be out there forever. Have you thought about the consequences?" Scarlett rolled her eyes dramatically. "God, Mom, you sound so old-fashioned. It's 2023. Everyone has nudes out there. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal?" Dad repeated incredulously. "Scarlett, you have a business degree from an Ivy League school. You could be working at top firms, starting your own company, making a real difference in the world. Instead, I'm what, Dad?" Scarlett challenged. "I'm taking control of my sexuality? I'm capitalizing on an untapped market? I'm being an entrepreneur?" The irony of Scarlett using business jargon to justify her OnlyFans career might have been funny if the situation wasn't so heartbreaking. I could see the pain in Dad's eyes, the disappointment etched into every line of his face. "You're squandering your potential," he said quietly, his anger giving way to sadness. "You're settling for easy money instead of challenging yourself. You're letting down not just us, but yourself." Scarlett's defiant facade cracked a little at those words. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the sister I used to know, the one who would stay up late studying, who had big dreams of changing the world through ethical business practices, but then, as quickly as it appeared, that glimpse of the old Scarlett vanished. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You know what? I don't need this," she declared, grabbing her purse. "I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions. And if you can't support me, then maybe I don't need to be part of this family anymore." With that dramatic pronouncement, Scarlett stormed out of the dining room. We heard the front door slam a few moments later, leaving the rest of us sitting in stunned silence. Mom was the first to break the silence, her voice choked with tears. "Where did we go wrong?" she asked, looking to Dad for answers he didn't have. Dad just shook his head, looking older and more defeated than I'd ever seen him. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought we raised her better than this. I thought we taught her the value of hard work, of using her talents for something meaningful." As I sat there, watching my parents grapple with the aftermath of Scarlett's revelation, I couldn't help but reflect on the series of events that had led us to this point. It wasn't just about OnlyFans or Scarlett's lack of a traditional job. It was about the gradual erosion of values, the insidious influence of a culture that prioritized easy money and instant gratification over genuine achievement and personal growth. That I thought about Scarlett's transformation over the years, how she had arrived at university full of ambition and ideals, ready to conquer the world of business and make our family proud. And how, slowly but surely, those ambitions had been corrupted by the allure of a lifestyle that promised all reward with minimal effort. The influence of friends like Amber and Jasmine had played a significant role, no doubt. Their constant pursuit of luxury and their disdain for traditional paths to success had clearly rubbed off on Scarlett. But I knew that ultimately, the choice had been hers. She had chosen to embrace this new identity, to trade her long-term potential for short-term gains. As the evening wore on, the weight of what had transpired settled over our home like a heavy blanket. Mom busied herself with clearing the table, her movements mechanical as she tried to process her emotions. Dad retreated to his study, no doubt to grapple with his feelings of failure and disappointment. And me? I was left to ponder my role in all of this. Could I have done more to steer Scarlett back on track? Should I have spoken up sooner about the changes I'd noticed in her? Or was this simply an inevitable outcome of the world we now lived in, a world where the line between empowerment and exploitation had become increasingly blurred? The days that followed were tense and uncomfortable. Scarlett didn't return home, choosing instead to stay with one of her friends, probably Amber or Jasmine, I assumed. She didn't call, didn't text, seemingly content to leave us all in limbo as she pursued her newfound career. Mom tried to reach out several times, leaving voicemails that oscillated between concern and pleading. Dad, on the other hand, retreated into himself, spending long hours at work and barely speaking when he was home. As for me, I found myself caught in the middle, trying to understand both sides of the conflict. On one hand, I could see why Scarlett felt judged and unsupported. The world was changing, and traditional career paths weren't always as straightforward or rewarding as they once were. Maybe, in her mind, she really was being entrepreneurial, adapting to a new economic landscape, but on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was selling herself short. The sister I had grown up with had been capable of so much more than selling lingerie pics online. She had been a force of nature, intelligent, driven, and determined to make a positive impact on the world. About a week after the disastrous family dinner, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I reached out to Scarlett, asking if we could meet for coffee. To my surprise, she agreed that we met at a small cafe near her apartment, neutral ground for what I hoped would be a productive conversation. When Scarlett walked in, I was struck by how different she looked. Gone was the polished, professional appearance she had cultivated during her college years. Instead, she wore heavy makeup, her hair styled in a way that seemed more appropriate for a nightclub than a coffee shop. "Hey," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thanks for not yelling at me like Mom and Dad." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I'm not here to yell, Scarlett. I just want to understand. This isn't like you, or at least, it's not like the you I thought I knew." Scarlett's defensive posture softened slightly. "Maybe you never really knew me," she said, but there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice that we sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffees. Finally, I decided to address the elephant in the room. "Scarlett, be honest with me. Are you really happy doing what you're doing?" She opened her mouth, probably to deliver another defiant retort, but then closed it again. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. I don't know," she admitted finally. "It seemed so empowering at first, you know, like I was taking control of my sexuality, monetizing the male gaze or whatever. But lately," she trailed off, and I waited patiently for her to continue. "Lately, I've been feeling empty," she confessed. "Like, is this really all I'm capable of? Posting thirst traps for creepy guys online?" I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "Scarlett, you know it's not. You're capable of so much more." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, but it's so hard, you know? Everyone expects so much from me. Dad's expectations, the pressure to succeed right out of college. Sometimes it feels easier to just give up." And there it was, the crux of the issue. Scarlett hadn't turned to OnlyFans out of a genuine desire for that lifestyle. She had done it as a form of rebellion, a way to cope with the overwhelming pressure of postgraduate life. "Scarlett," I said gently, "giving up isn't the answer. And neither is settling for less than you're worth. You have so much potential, not because of Dad's expectations or your Ivy League degree, but because of who you are as a person." She looked at me, vulnerability written across her face. "But what if I fail? What if I can't live up to everyone's expectations?" I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Then you try again. And again. And again. That's what real hustle is, Scarlett. It's not about easy money or quick fame. It's about perseverance, about believing in yourself enough to keep going even when things get tough." We talked for hours that day, delving into Scarlett's fears, her aspirations, and the person she truly wanted to be. By the time we left the cafe, something had shifted. The defiant, rebellious facade had cracked, revealing the uncertain but determined young woman underneath. In the weeks that followed, Scarlett made some big changes. She moved out of the apartment she shared with Amber and Jasmine, recognizing the negative influence they had on her life. She deactivated her OnlyFans account, despite the protests of her subscribers. Most importantly, she started applying for jobs, real jobs that would challenge her intellect and allow her to make a meaningful impact. It wasn't easy. There were rejections, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But this time, instead of retreating into a world of easy gratification, Scarlett faced these challenges head-on. Slowly but surely, our family began to heal. Scarlett moved back home temporarily, using the money she had saved to take some additional courses and build her skills. Dad, seeing her genuine efforts to turn her life around, softened his stance and became her biggest cheerleader. It took time, but eventually, Scarlett landed a job at a startup focused on sustainable business practices. The pay wasn't as high as some of her classmates' corporate gigs, and the hours were long. But for the first time in years, I saw real passion in my sister's eyes when she talked about her work. Looking back on that tumultuous period in our family's life, I realized that it was a wake-up call for all of us. For Scarlett, it was a reminder of her own worth and potential. For our parents, it was a lesson in the importance of communication and understanding. And for me, it was an eye-opening